This is the 47 seconds that saved Kamala Harris's political career, at least according to the New York Times. However, while that may be true, they're missing a massive component to this story. In 2010, Kamala Harris ran for Attorney General of the state of California. At the time, she was the district attorney of San Francisco, and she was running against the Republican LA County district, guy named Steve Cooley. I'm going to play this clip for you. This is what apparently swayed the election, and I do think it had a pretty significant impact, especially when they cut up commercials from this clip. But I'm going to play you this clip, watch it, we'll discuss what we think, but then we'll get into the point that the New York Times is missing entirely in their article about this was the moment that defined Kamala Harris's political future. Watch this.
General makes about $150,000 a year, which is less than half what you made last year as district attorney of LA County.
Right.
If you win November's election, do you plan to double dip by taking both a pension and your salary as attorney general?
Yes, I do. I earned it. 38 years of public service. I definitely earned whatever pension rights I have, and I will certainly rely upon that to supplement the very low, incredibly low salary that's paid to the state attorney general.
Anything you'd like to add to that?
Go for it, Steve.
When you get there, you'll want yours too.
You've earned it. There's no question.
Pretty definitive.
There's no question.
Do you recognize the Kamala cackle that was going on there? That hasn't changed really at all. But the question was, are you going to double dip on your regular pension that you had from the LA County District Attorney's job, and then also take the money for the California Attorney General at the statewide level? He said yes. That wasn't where he lost the debate moment, the election. It was when he said that $150,000 in 2010 money was a paltry salary. Well, I need the pension to supplement the incredibly low salary. Kamala Harris and her campaign then went on to clip that out to say, well, Steve Cooley doesn't think $150,000 is even remotely possible to live on. And then she ended up winning the election. The New York Times says this was the pivotal moment. Had he not said that, and this is a warning to political candidates everywhere, you don't need to continue talking. If it's a yes or no answer, and it's a simple yes or no answer, just say, yeah, I will. If he had just said that, he would have been totally fine. But he went on to say, well, the $150,000 that the state attorney general makes in 2010 is just not going to be enough to survive on. All of that to be said, the New York Times says, well, this is the pivotal moment that saved Kamala Harris's political career because she went on to win that election by the slimmest majority in California history. This is what the article says. It was a turning point in the campaign. Ms. Harris would escape a month later with one of the narrowest statewide victories in modern California history by less than 0.85% of the vote. Yet, even on election night, Harris's chances had appeared so bleak that Mr. Cooley declared victory. The race remained unsettled for 3 weeks. Does that sound familiar to anyone? But we won't go down that particular rabbit hole. Bottom line is, Kamala Harris had a narrow victory, just eked it out over a Republican in the state of California, which is what the New York Times doesn't say at all in the article, and is the biggest point to be made. The fact that this is even a conversation should shed light on the fact that Kamala Harris is a terrible candidate in general. She loses all the time. In a Democrat, deep blue controlled state of California, she came within a hair of losing to a Republican in a statewide race. If that doesn't tell you that she's a terrible candidate, well, I do know what else can tell you. The litany of other campaigns that she's run and failed at. But what the New York Times doesn't mention is how bad of a candidate she would have had to have been to just barely eke it out. If that was the 47 seconds that saved her political career, holy cow, that maybe she needs more help than just that 47 seconds, and maybe she got lucky because In any other situation, the Democrat would have mopped the floor with the Republican, except for in the case of Kamala Harris. Just for reference, California, statewide, does not elect Republicans, at least in the last 30 years. Now, people will make the case, well, Arnold Schwarzenegger, yeah, sure, Arnold Schwarzenegger won in the state of California, but he won in 2 special elections, and he was a world-famous movie star. Like that, I don't think that counts. And also, when he got into office, calling him a Republican was, I don't know if that actually would have counted. Outside of Arnold Schwarzenegger getting elected governor of California as a quote-unquote Republican, the only other guy to win in recent memory is this guy named Steve Poizner in 2006. And yes, a Republican in 2006 won a statewide race for insurance commissioner. You know, those high ticket, very important job. I'm not trying to diminish the value of that job in and of itself. But when it comes to voters, insurance commissioner is not really on their voting priorities list. So I don't know how much you should count that. If you exclude Poizner and Arnold Schwarzenegger, the last Republican to win a significant statewide election in California goes all the way back to Pete Wilson in 1994. 30 years since a prominent Republican in a legitimate election statewide has won in the deep blue state of California, minus Schwarzenegger and the insurance commissioner in 2006. And I'm not sure how much good he actually did. All of that is to say that while the New York Times makes the case of, well, this was the pinnacle, the turning point of Kamala Harris's political future, they neglect to mention that Kamala Harris came within a hair of losing to a Republican in a state where Republicans do not win. If it tells you anything, it tells you how poor of a candidate Kamala Harris has always been, and maybe that sheds some light onto the whole strategy of running the empty vessel candidate, which Democrats are currently doing in this 2024 election cycle. Kamala Harris has yet to put out really any significant policy. The DNC put out their platform, but they did it as if Joe Biden was still running. I don't know if that was a typo or on purpose, but Kamala Harris has not answered any questions, which, again, all of this is on purpose. And I think even her laugh in 2010 hasn't changed. So, the idea that this is the pinnacle turning point of her political career, yeah, I guess that's true. But without the context of the fact that she almost lost outside of this one verbal slip up by her Republican opponent, I think that is a much bigger thing to speak to if you're trying to look at Kamala Harris as a political viable candidate.